Welcome to the Ottawa Business Journal's live broadcast of Balancing Cyber Risk with Business Investment. I'm Michael Curran from the Ottawa Business Journal. Thank you for joining us today. The thought of cybersecurity can be a daunting one for many business leaders who face these tough questions. Will I be a target of a cyber attack? How can I be protected and ready to react? And how do I mitigate cybersecurity risk without making infinite investments? Understanding is always competing needs. These are tough questions to answer, and on your own, business leaders will likely struggle to put the right measures in place. But at OBJ, we're all about helping local business leaders with complex challenges. Today, we've enlisted two of the region's IT and cybersecurity experts. We are hoping to take a unique approach to the cybersecurity discussion. We don't want to scare you. We want to stay anchored in reality. And we understand, as I said earlier, that business leaders have multiple competing priorities that they must always balance. And last but not least, we're not going to get technical on you, so you don't have to be an IT expert to fully be engaged in today's discussion. Okay, it's time to meet our guest today. You are doubly blessed. As I indicated, we have two guests to help us. First up, we have the VP of Customer Success at Convergence Networks. Here is Dany Charland. Hey, Dany.
Hey, Michael. How you doing?
I'm doing great, and I am very happy that we are talking about an issue that I think a lot of business leaders haven't wrapped their heads around, or at least not taken action on, Dany. So this is going to be very helpful to a lot of business leaders. Thanks for being here. Next up, we have one of Dany's colleagues, the Senior Business Development Manager at Convergence Networks. Here is Sean Mullen. Hey, Sean.
Hi, Michael. Hi, Michael. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you. As I said to Dany, this is a good topic and an important one. So I want to congratulate everyone who's tuning in for taking some time in your busy schedule. Sean, just to set things up a little bit, I was hoping you could give us a short elevator pitch on Convergence Networks.
Absolutely. We are Convergence Networks. We are formerly known as Grade A, and we've been around for 20 years. We are an IT managed services and cybersecurity services company. But unlike many IT providers, we do not outsource our cybersecurity services. We handle it all in-house with our own staff. We partner with Ottawa companies for full service IT, strategic planning, and of course, cybersecurity. We work with clients across all industries, including engineering and law firms, not-for-profits, construction companies, and all kinds of small, medium, and large Ottawa businesses.
I like that. There's lots of things I heard there. You're focused on Ottawa. That sounds like OBJ, a mix of SMEs and some big businesses. So it sounds like we're going to have a great conversation. So let's take a look at our agenda today. As usual, we've divided things up into three digestible segments. In topic number one, we're going to talk about understanding the why of cybersecurity and why it's vital. In topic number two, we're going to talk about how you need to develop a cybersecurity plan. Just like you have a lot of plans in your business, you need a cybersecurity plan. And then number three, we're going to talk about the pillars of cybersecurity. And we always want to keep this live broadcast interactive. So my colleague Susan from OBJ will be in the chat. So regardless of whether you're on YouTube or LinkedIn or any other social platform, we encourage you to ask questions. And we're going to be getting to those questions after the three topics. We'll go to you and we'll screen some of those questions and pose them to our experts. So this is a unique opportunity, again, to get interactive with two local experts. All right, Dany, we're going to jump right into topic number one, which again is understanding why cybersecurity is vital. I think, Dany, a lot of business leaders are coming to terms with how literally crippling a cyber attack can be. So there's an understanding that the frequency of these attacks are increasing. And there's also an understanding, I think, that if you are hit by a cyber attack, this can be a very, very expensive proposition. So it's not a matter, Dany, of if something will happen, it's a matter of when it will happen. What are you hearing, Dany, from some of your local business leaders and clients?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct, Michael. I think every leader that I speak to recognizes the risk to their business. I think what the challenge is how do I invest? How much do I invest? And somehow I always end up deprioritizing this when it comes to my annual budget time. Most leaders understand, hey, if I spend on sales, if I hire salespeople, if I spend on marketing, I'm going to grow my top line. It's going to be good for my business. If I want to grow my bottom line, I'm going to spend on efficiencies and driving work out of my business. I understand that. Spending on cybersecurity and protecting against that risk is a little bit like spending on insurance. It's well, I'd like to spend as little as possible, but feel as protected as possible, and I just don't know how to do that. And so we think about it as sort of three things, right? The three sort of fundamental things. First is you must first understand what absolutely needs to be protected in your business. So, what is your true risk? Then, after that, you can build your what. So, how do I build a measured investment, a measured plan to protect that? And then, once you have that in place, then the third leg of the stool is so then how do I know it's working? How do I know that I'm not just throwing good money after bad?
Dany, I like your analogy about insurance, right? So let's just think about this for a second. If you were an entrepreneur starting a business or a professional manager inside a business or organization, you wouldn't dare operate without insurance, right? Like that would just be crazy, quite frankly. And I think what we're trying to advance some of the thinking here is that you must take a similar approach with cybersecurity, right? There has to be a plan in place. This isn't something you can leave to random. So Dany, as Simon Sinek, the author, said, let's focus on the why of this. Why do we need to do this, Dany? Over to you.
Well, I think the why is to make sure that you're truly protected, right? And it's about having a measured investment in protecting the thing that needs to be protected, right? It sounds easy, it sounds obvious, but every business is different. Every business has a different reason, a different threshold, a different tolerance for certain things happening to their business. Some are worried about downtime. Some are worried about IP in their business. Some are worried about, reputational risk. And it's understanding what is the true risk of a cyber attack and the true impact to your business. And that why, answering that question really leads to understanding what you need to do then from a cyber protection standpoint. If you skip that step, you're just going to be buying a bunch of things and spending on a bunch of things, and you may not be protecting the most important assets in your business.
Yeah, I get the point, I think. So, for some people, it will be like critical data, right? It could be, IP protected data. For some people, it might be more operational because you're not really a business that functions with a lot of, confidential data. So I get the point, Dany. If you don't figure out the why, then you're not going to build the right plan. Dany, I always think it's interesting or effective to share a story to bring some of these. So we're touching on some really importance here, but wrapping them in an anecdote always works and makes things a little bit more relatable. I love this, Dany. You've got an story about a pizza business. So I think we can all wrap our head around a pizza business. Tell us that story, Dany.
Yeah, Michael, I have tons of stories and I like to tell them. But here's an interesting one that illustrates the point. A few years ago, a pizza business, they operate hundreds of pizza restaurants across North America. They reached out to one of our ethical hackers because they were worried about their secret pizza sauce recipe. And this recipe, this sauce, is what makes them famous and what's been attracting customers for decades. So to them, it wasn't downtime, it wasn't availability of services, it was we cannot lose this recipe. It cannot end up on the open internet. And so when they hired our ethical hacker, they essentially said, we need you to try to find and steal the recipe. We're not going to tell you where it is. We're not going to tell you what it looks like. It's somewhere on our infrastructure, on our IT infrastructure. Try to find it. But and this is a big but, and this is the interesting part of the story, is that if you find it, you cannot open and read what's in the file. And they even put that in the contract. That's how critical this recipe is to their business. So the assignment was try to get to it and then tell us how you did it so we can figure out if we have holes that we need to plug in our infrastructure. And so I tell this story, and I think it's a relevant one because so much is being said about cost of downtime. You could go online and find all kinds of calculators on understand your cost of downtime. That is what you need to know in case you get a ransomware attack, in case you get a cyber attack. But realistically, for some businesses, it's not about that. And there's something else in their business. And so in the case of this restaurant operator, right? They built their entire cybersecurity infrastructure around protecting that key asset because that is the most critical thing to their business.
You're making me very hungry, Dany. Okay. We hope
It
all
is
of
lunchtime, Michael.
our audience are eating lunch. Maybe order your favorite pizza now that Dany shared that story. But I get the point, right? For them, it was a secret. Whether it was a secret recipe or a secret around, again, an IP piece of technology, some secret financial information. I get the point. John, we want to bring you into the discussion. You're going to recap and enumerate 4 points that expand on Dany's why. Take it away, Sean.
Yeah, so the 4 areas that companies typically prioritize as most important to them are number 1 is downtime. So for your business, if productivity is key to your business and you are most concerned about downtime, you need to focus on mitigating your recovery time. How long will it take you to be back up and running? For instance, if you're okay with being down for 8 hours because you can catch up, but if your operation goes down for 3 days, then it's a different story. You're in big trouble then. Then you need to focus on shrinking that recovery time down to 1 or 2 days. That is part of your why. Number 2 is data security. If you're most concerned about protecting your critical data, you need to focus on data encryption and exfiltration. Personal data, customer data, supplier information, intellectual property data, regulatory requirements. You need to focus on encryption and encrypting this sensitive data. You need to encrypt your secret sauce of Dany's story. So even if the hack gets to your data, they cannot access it. They won't be able to print it. They won't be able to sell it on the dark web. You'll be protecting it at all costs. Number 3 is the cost of a cyber attack. If you've never been hit by a ransomware attack, it's very expensive. The average cost of a ransomware attack in Canada for small to medium business is approximately $250,000. Now, this includes costs related to the ransom itself, legal fees, and remediation. If you're very concerned about the cost of recovery, if that $250,000 scares you, insurance is what you need to focus on. We can help you navigate the cyber insurance space. And number 4 is brand reputation. If you're most concerned about brand reputation and knowing that your business, that every business will experience some form of cyber attack at least once in their lifetime, you need to understand what the impact on your business is and how you recover from the brand damage. Most companies, suppliers, partners will forgive a single cybersecurity event, but will they forgive a second one? We talk to companies every day. Recently, we were talking to a CEO and a CFO of a large company who deal with some big brands. They had a cyber incident. The event impacted their customers and partners, but they had a recovery plan and they followed it. They had a communication strategy where they reached out to suppliers, partners, customers. The owner personally called some of their largest customers. They executed the plan very well. However, when I asked them, What would it mean if their business, what would it mean to their business if they were hacked again in the next 6 months? And the answer was very simple and very compelling. It would cripple our business, he said. That company, for them, it was brand reputation. That is their why. Every company needs to focus on their why.
Mm. So many good points there. We said we weren't going to scare people, but you have me a little scared. I got to admit, guys, $250,000 is freaking me out.
Yep.
But I get it, right? So as you were speaking, by the way, Sean, I was kind of processing things for OBJ. I think for OBJ, it would be more reputational, but I'm understanding more and more why you need to figure out the why. Okay, guys, we're going to move on to topic number 2. Before we do, I want to encourage people again to share some comments on YouTube or LinkedIn. We're going to be looking for your questions in just a few minutes. Sean, we're going to keep you rolling in topic number 2, which is developing your cybersecurity plan. I hope our audience has wrapped their heads around that why. Now let's, Sean, think about being proactive and developing that plan. Sean, please share your thoughts.
Okay, now you have the basis to build a measured and targeted plan to address your risk. How do you protect what is most critical to your business? So now I'm going to draw a parallel to military defenses. Now, think about a fortress. Think back to a fortress in medieval time. How did they protect the fortress? They protected the fortress with layers of security. The fortress location, often on top of a hill, was a layer of security in itself. Another layer was a water moat around the fortress to protect the bad guys from getting in. Then the large exterior wall, a huge wall, would protect the fortress. But it didn't stop there. It would go into another layer. There would be an interior wall. Each of these layers are unique and separate from each other, and they are designed to protect the crown jewels. It's about building layers of defense that makes it increasingly difficult to get to the secret sauce recipe. Cybersecurity follows the same principles. Layers of defense from the outside layers to the inside layers. So if the bad guys penetrate one layer, they can be stopped right there. The hack can be contained without the bad guys getting past the next layer. It gives you a chance to identify the threat and shut it down as soon as possible.
I'm thinking about those medieval castles, right? Yeah. The moats, the drawbridge, up on a hill, archers. I'm getting it. Sean, any good castle, as we said, would have a strong foundation. I'm thinking about these giant, brick walls. Yeah. So what is the foundation of a cybersecurity attack recovery plan?
The most foundational is backups. Backups are a critical part of your defense strategy, but backups are not perfect. So nearly 40% of small businesses report losing crucial data as a result of cyber attacks. And I bet that all of them had some form of backup in play. Not only are backups not perfect, but most businesses assume they are working at all times. Do not assume. When's the last time you verified the integrity of your backups? How frequent are your backups? If you had to recover, how far back do you go? Do you go back 24 hours? Do you go back a week? Do you need to go back a full 12 months? The scariest thing that we see, and we see it quite often, is that companies' backups are not protected. Backups must be on a separate domain. They must be off domain. What will actually happen is a cyber criminal will gain access into your system. They can be there for months before being detected. During that time, they are looking for your backups. They want to encrypt your backups and lock you out of your own critical data. Imagine being forced to pay a ransom in order to unlock the critical data that you felt was so important that you backed up. That can be a little bit scary.
And Dany, I'm hearing that some backups might not work. I still remember way back when, I'm going to age myself here, of Windows servers in closets and giant tape drives, and something would happen, and the IT people would come in, put the tape drive in, and guess what, didn't work. So our audience should not necessarily rest easy, even if they have a backup. But explain that for us, Dany.
Yeah, I think the best way to illustrate it is to share another story. I said earlier I have tons of them, so I'm going to share a story about this to sort of make it real. Um, just before Christmas last year, the president of a company calls me out of the blue and says, "Hey, Dany, I think we've been hacked." I said, "Oh no, that's unfortunate. Why do you think that? Tell me more." And he says, "Well, we showed up at work this morning and nobody can get into their systems, right? Everybody's locked out. Our credentials don't work. My IT administrator can't get into anything. We think we've been ransomware." But he said, but good news, we have backups. So what we need from you is we just need we need Convergence to help us recover. I said, okay, well, let's start at the top of the list, right? We bring our team into action. We said, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, first step is to eradicate and secure your environment, right? What an attacker does, like Sean said earlier, they've likely been in your environment for months, right? Trying to figure out what is critical to your business. What can they take? What can they encrypt? How much can you afford in a ransom, and so on. So they set up some kind of persistent access, right? A back door into your environment. We need to find it and we need to close it, right? We need to make sure that they're not in your environment. That's sort of step one. That can take a few hours, it could take a day. Then we assess the damage, right? So tell us, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, tell us about your critical information, right? Do you have a shared drive? Let's go find out if that's available. Accounting system, HR system, is that on-prem? Is that in the cloud? Where is that? Do we need to look for evidence of data exfiltration? So the bad guy is taking data out of your environment so that they can resell it or hold you ransom for it. We look for a ransom note on desktops because there's usually a note somewhere. And so we do all of that to kind of get a lay of the land. And then we look, of course, for the backups, right? Oh, you said you had backups. Where are they? Let's look for them. Once we have that, then we can start talking about a recovery plan because we have a sense of, okay, so here's where we stand. Now, in this case, I'm just going to skip forward to the backup part. The customer said, hey, good news, we have backups. So it's fantastic. Where are they? We find the local backup. That, of course, has been encrypted because the bad guys, the Sean story, had access to it. And so they encrypted all the local backups. So we had to go back to, as you said, Michael, to tape. They had a tape system that had been around for a long time and it worked, so they never changed it. So we said, okay, well, where are your tapes? And what's on your tapes? Well, we don't know what's on the tapes, Dany. We have them. We take them off site, so they're secure. We can request them. They're in a secure facility. We kind of don't know what's on the tapes. We don't know what the format is, but we're pretty sure the tapes work. I said, okay, fantastic. Okay, let's look at your tape drive, right? Like, how do we actually read the tape? So the local backups are gone. The tape drive has a controller. Well, the controller is gone too, because that's been encrypted too. And so at this point, we have tapes that we can't read, and the tapes are at a minimum a week old, but likely a month old is what we're going to have to go to. So now think about all the data that's been lost. And then, of course, it's an older piece of hardware. It was Christmas time. The customer had stopped paying vendor support on the tape drive because, well, this thing's old. Like, we don't need to pay for vendor support anymore. So just getting the ability to rebuild the controller and having all the drivers available to read the tapes, to understand what's on the tapes, because nobody knows what's on the tapes and what format it's in. That's where we were at after a few days. And that's when it became very real for our customer, right? So our customer at this point is essentially realizing that I should have paid more attention to my backups because now I'm not even sure if I'm going to be able to recover everything, right? And that's the reality. If you're not testing and validating, right? It's the reality that you end up into where you feel extremely vulnerable because the thing that's supposed to save you, you're not entirely sure anymore if it's actually there and available and going to save you.
Yeah. Okay. Like I said, it's a bit scary. I love the stories though. Love, like, that's a very real story. I'm sure lots of people can relate to various elements of it. Sean, like many businesses these days, like OBJ, in fact, we're almost 100% cloud environment, and we have all these SaaS platforms. So if someone's listening here, Sean, should they take consolation if they're in that type of setup?
Well, not necessarily. Let's
Okay.
think about that. So you're offloading your critical data to someone else to secure it. That's a big ask of any partnership. So the first question would be, do you trust their security? Cybersecurity experts will always tell you to limit your third-party footprint as much as you can. There are many big brands that we all use to store our data in the cloud. Do we trust them to keep our data safe? So there's Amazon, Microsoft. How about CrowdStrike, who was recently hacked? Just because they're big does not mean they're immune to cyber attacks. We expect these services to be secure. You're paying a lot of money for the services, but they are also a big target for the hackers. So, what you really need to remember and take away is no company is 100% safe from cyber attacks.
Yeah, I'm getting that. And, Sean, when we think about it, we've been talking a lot about technology, but there are some well-known stories right here in our own city of cyber attacks that started with a person, right? So it was a person that fell victim to some sort of, nefarious act. I think it's true, Sean, that it's often people that are the weak spot, even if you've got your IT act in order, so to speak?
100%. The most significant weakness is definitely your people, your colleagues, your leadership team, all of your staff. So we've all been tricked. I have. We all have been. We are very busy. We are multitasking at all times. All of us are guilty of clicking on a link that we probably should not have. Social engineering is a proven tactic of cyber criminals. What you need to know today is the quality and sophistication of the phishing attacks are so much better than they've ever been before. They are really hard to detect. Therefore, it is actually some staff and individuals that create the access point for the cyber criminals. Consider this: human error accounts for 74% of data breaches. 74%. Abuse of valid credentials accounted for 47% of data breaches globally in 2023. 35% of malware delivered in 2023 was through email, which is the most common vector for malware. So be very diligent, be very aware that all of us could be part of a cyber attack.
Yeah. It's that social engineering component, right? So,
Yeah.
there were the days of, what was it? The prince in Africa needed money. I
Yeah.
mean, like we could figure that one out.
You
But
could look at
now
the
they're like,
poor spelling and like
yeah,
bad, it was
yes.
fairly obvious. Now with
Yeah.
AI, it is not obvious at all.
Yeah, for sure. And it's looking like a colleague or it's looking like a supplier. And I think the other thing you said is we're all moving super quick these days, super quick, especially in email, right? So we're clicking, trying to be most important. So anyway, Sean, I guess the question is, how can a company protect its people from falling victim to some of these scams or attacks?
Yeah, so education is key, and not one and done, but a consistent education program to keep the threat of cybersecurity top of mind at all times for all of your staff. Awareness. Every company needs to build a culture of awareness and the awareness that your company could be attacked. Like we could be vulnerable, so we need to be diligent. Companies need to have policies on IT security. And it's critical that you actually enforce these policies and practice them and update them. Last, and it's probably most critical, is multi-factor authentication. This is your number one tool. It'll make you more safe than any other tool. If you are not practicing MFA, if all of your staff are not authenticating through at least 2 factors, your company is at a greater risk. So please, please, please stop resisting.
Yeah, I hear you. There's one of the big takeaways right there, by the way. So either MFA, 2-factor.
Yeah.
Dany, let's bring you back into the conversation. I think one of the things as I'm wading through all this information is that there isn't necessarily a silver bullet. That's we get that. There often isn't for many complex business challenges, right? There's not like a single answer, but you guys do have me thinking about cyber insurance. Something that I've seen is sometimes, for example, if you're bidding on something, they will want to know that you actually are insured for a cyber insurance through cyber insurance. Dany, tell us more.
Yeah, and oftentimes, Michael, why they ask that question, it's not just from a liability and an ability to pay, but also cyber insurers have become much, much more sophisticated in the last few years on issuing cyber insurance policies. So the level of testing that they do to validate that your business is properly protected is higher than it's ever been before. So don't assume that you will get a cyber insurance policy just because you are applying for it. And the reason why? Well, cyber insurance premiums in Canada grew dramatically in the last 10 years, right? It used to be, in 2015, it was $18 million worth of cyber insurance premiums paid in Canada. Last year, it was over $500 million. So you can just see how quickly that segment of insurance has grown. But the most interesting part and why they're becoming so sophisticated, Michael, is for every dollar that is collected in cyber insurance premiums by insurance companies, over $1.50 of claims is being paid out. And this is in the last 4 years. Insurers are in it to make money. They're a for-profit business, and so they are compelled to becoming more and more sophisticated. And so, what we do at Convergence, we have agreements with a few insurers. And so if you're a customer of ours, you are automatically approved for insurance because we put in place the right security for our customers. And so ask yourself, when you're looking at your premiums, how do you get a reduction in your premiums? You have to invest in your level of protection.
Yeah, and all forms of insurance, or maybe I should put it this way, and we're not beating up on insurance companies here. We're just simply saying sometimes even when you have insurance, you're not protected because there are loopholes, right? There's clauses that limit the degree of liability. Guys, we're at topic number 3. We're going to quickly run through this one. We've got some great comments, so hang with us here, people. We're going to get to your questions in just a second. A reminder to everyone, topic number 3 is the 3 pillars of cybersecurity. It's great that we have 2 experts from Convergence Networks here who can help protect people or help people at their most vulnerable time. Dany, what can our audience do now? So we're all about informing yourself, but also taking action, right? That's a big part of what we're doing here today. So Dany, what should they do now?
Yeah, so we think of it as, if I had to recommend something to our audience, I would say there's really 3 things that you should be thinking about doing. Number 1, if you're not having conversations with your IT people, whether they're internal, whether they're outsourced, if you're not having conversations with your IT people about, are they protecting, do they understand what your why is, what it is, what are the key assets, what's the key risk that they need to protect against? If you're not having a conversation with them about this, and you can't tie back what they're doing from a technology standpoint to the thing that really needs to be protected in your business, right? Whether it's downtime, whether it's some, IP that you have in your business, whether it's, all the things that we talked about earlier. If you can't tie it back and all you hear back is a bunch of IT jargon and you can't figure it out as a leader, hey, wait a minute, are they really protecting the thing that I really need them to protect? Then you have to solve for that. The way that we do it at Convergence, we do a business impact assessment. So we've developed our own over the years with our experience. And it's really a framework to determine what are the most critical risks to your business, what is your level of tolerance for these risks, and then that informs the plan. So if you're not having that conversation, or if you don't have that clearly mapped out in your head, then you may not be protected and you may have significant gaps. So I suggest you do that. Number two, ask your leadership team, your executive team, do they understand what is the highest risk in your business? And if they don't, then you might also be putting your business at risk. Think about this. Executives in businesses make decisions all day long, and some of these decisions could have significant implications from a security standpoint in your business, from protecting the risk in your business. And so if they are not clearly an understanding of what are the critical risks in your business, then they might be putting you at risk. And so in this case, what we look to do is, one, build awareness. Sean talked about this. Build awareness, build a culture of cybersecurity in your organization, but also have some plans in place, right? Do you have a business continuity disaster recovery plan? Do you have an incident response plan? When something happens, does your leadership team know how to react? Sean gave an example earlier about reputational risk and how this organization that was hit, they did a phenomenal job at responding to it. They lost no customers. They protected their brand reputation because they had a plan and they knew how to execute it. And every member of their executive team knew what to do. So if you don't have these things, we're glad to help you build those out. They're critical and foundational. The third thing that I would say is you need to test, and test again. Your security measures are only as good as your ability to execute on them, right? We talked about backups. Have you ever tested your ability to recover from backups? We talked about ethical hacking. Have you ever done a penetration test? Do you know if your secret pizza sauce is secured or not, right? Is it in the inner wall of your fortress, or is it lying somewhere else and it's not being fully protected? Right? Do your end users know what they're doing? Are you doing phishing simulations on a regular basis and actually looking at the results to make informed decisions on what do we need to do from a training standpoint and education standpoint? When's the last time you tested your business continuity disaster recovery plan? One thing that we do with our customers is we do a tabletop exercise, right? So we actually bring the executive in, we come up with a mock scenario that we present in the moment, and then we test out, hey, what are you going to do? Hey, you executive, what are you going to do about this? Hey, this happens next. What are you going to do about it? How are you communicating it out? You need to test and test again and do this on a regular cadence to make sure that when something happens, it's not a surprise. People are not scrambling, but you actually have a plan and awareness in your business, and you know that you are protected. So I think if I'm going to wrap this all up for us and our listeners, Michael,
Yeah.
I think one thing that we really wanted to try to illustrate today is, sure, it's scary out there and there's a lot of bad things, but proper cybersecurity protection goes far beyond systems and tools. It's not just about technology. It's about building a culture of cyber awareness in your business. And it's about clearly understanding where your risk is and what are the thresholds that you need to put in place. So you're not just spending a bunch of money and then hoping. Hope is not a plan, as they say, right? And so don't hope, have a plan and make sure that you put it into place.
Very cool. Very cool. I like that simulation, and the whole ethical hackers is really cool. Listen, we're going to go to some of those questions right now. It's been you've done a great job so far. I just want to give a shout out to a few people. So, hello, Mr. Jerry Singh. Thanks for joining us today. I like giving a little recognition to people who are with us. There's Damio Leslie. Thank you for joining us. But Steve Georgopoulos, a frequent attendee. Hello, Steve. At some of our events, he's asking something I think we touched on already, but maybe we can just again just do a quick refresher on what are the first three things you should do. So if someone's on this, we touched on it just a second ago, but in synopsis, maybe Dany or Sean, what would you say to that?
Yeah, I would say the first thing you need to do is we talked about planning, right? So
Yeah.
I'm just going to assume that you have a plan, but even if you don't, right? The first thing you need to do is you need to figure out how to secure your environment, right? So I would say if your IT people, whether they're internal or external, they may not have the level of expertise to do it, so you need help. And the soonest you can bring help in, the soonest you can, one, ensure that it doesn't get worse, because it could get worse, right? And two, you can start your plan to recovery soonest because it could take a lot of time. I hear of businesses that it takes them 6 months to fully recover. It
Wow.
sounds absurd, but it happens. And so the soonest you can bring in expertise, right? I'm going to, give a shameless pitch. Call us. We're here to help. We're here to walk you through it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We've done this numerous times with numerous organizations. We're here to help. And so the sooner you can bring in expertise, the better off you are.
And Sean, a bit of a longer question, but I'm going to summarize it like this. And we touched on it a little bit. Many companies have a help desk service, or they've got an internal person. You guys aren't necessarily there. If someone's interested in talking to Convergence Networks, you're not there to displace people, right? You're there to dig into whether they actually have the proper expertise. So, that's not a criticism if someone's got a help desk or IT, right? Is that right, Sean?
Absolutely. So we meet our customers where they are
Yeah.
in their IT journey, and technology and cybersecurity is building so fast and changing so fast that if you were a really good help desk technician 10 years ago and you didn't take the time to constantly relearn what's cutting edge, what the industry is seeing, you may not have the answers. So we can provide level 2, level 3 service for you, and your own IT people can be kind of that help desk to handle level 1 calls for that.
Yeah, I like that. You're not there to repeat anyone's service, and you're there to kind of assess it and augment it. And
Yes,
I think
with expertise.
with expertise, because it's changing all the time.
Yeah,
So,
this is
you
what
could,
we do.
that's it. You might have a IT expert on staff that specializes in cloud, or, or more fundamental businesses. Listen, we're going to share your contact information, by the way. So I'm sure people have more questions. We're into overtime, as they say. Sean, I think what we're going to do is bring up the contact us slide. So I'm sure people watching are thinking, okay, I understand it. We need the why. We need to walk through some of those 3 points in the plan. So here we go on screen. You got Dany and Sean's contact information. Sean, a quick point on a first step. Someone reaches out to you. What's a first step that they can expect to make this a little bit less intimidating, if I can put it that way?
Yeah, so we'll have a conversation with you about your business, learn
Okay.
about your business. What we can offer for everyone attending this webinar and anyone listening to it on the recording later on,
Okay.
we're offering a free network assessment on your IT. We'll be able to
Awesome.
identify some gaps, and it'll be a great conversation starter. And we can actually show our expertise, and you can kind of see, okay, maybe this deserves a bit more of our attention. So please reach out to Dany and I anytime. My email is smullen@convergencenetworks.com.
That's great. Listen, I think we've achieved something important here. I think that you gentlemen bump into people who are in crisis situations every day. And what we're trying to do here is help some of the business leaders get into proactive mode a little bit. Think about this a little bit deeper. And maybe I would just say, just as you wouldn't operate your business without some form of insurance or other proper legal agreements, or have a lock on your doors of your office space, like this is something that you need to build into the plan. So reach out to some experts. I think we've got 2 of them all here on screen. But let's take action and prepare ourselves for to avoid really, business threatening situations. Dany, Sean, 2 thumbs up. Good job, guys. We appreciate your time. Once again, we're going to be sharing your contact info. So great having you here today. We'll see you soon, guys.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, OBJ.
Okay. All right. And of course, that was Dany and Sean from Convergence Networks. I'm going to say it again. We're going to share their information in case you want to contact them. A reminder, you can visit obj.ca every day for the latest local business news and information. We're updating the website on a constant basis. I highly recommend you subscribe to OBJ Today, which is our weekly email newsletter. And if you're on social media, particularly LinkedIn, give us a follow. We're almost at 40,000 followers. So that's an internal goal for us. And finally, if you're on YouTube, here's a way to stay in touch with these broadcasts that are live. You go to YouTube, you click the red subscribe button and the little bell icon. That's the one that gives you the notification. That's all the time we have for today. On behalf of Convergence Networks and OBJ, we wish you a great day and great fall. Let's take some action on this, Ottawa. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye, everyone.